Okay, this is a little tutorial on how to use our Google Docs or your PV Learners account to graph data and to actually calculate what would be the slope of the best fit line and the y-intercept. All right, so you're going to go into your Google Docs and you're going to need to create a spreadsheet. Now I've already done this because I've entered the values and I've got this spreadsheet. Now when you do this, yours would be a blank, and the very first thing I would do is I would title my my spreadsheet. And so for today I'm just going to call this practice, and you'll notice that over here in the very first row you will need to enter whatever the variables are and make sure that you include the units as well. The x-axis will go first and then the y-axis. So I have my data here, and this is from some imaginary experiment that I've done. And there's a couple things we can do with this spreadsheet. First is we can find the slope. So over here in this column D in this first row, I'm going to enter in, this is going to be the slope, and then next to that I want to find out what is the y-intercept. All right, so in the next row down here, we're going to put in the formula. And anytime you use a formula, we always start with an equal sign. And next that I'm going to start typing in slope, and notice that there's a default there that Google Docs gives you. And I need to use the appropriate format, so I first need to put in parentheses. And the slope is simply the y values divided by the x. So I come over here, we're under velocity, and I don't want just the first point, I want all 6. So I drag the mouse down, and after I do that, you'll see that over here it says B2 to B7. That says use all 6 of those values. I put a comma in there to separate the y value from the x, and I'm going to repeat that for the x values. When you're done, remember to finish it off with the parentheses. I hit equals, and I have the slope. Now the number is kind of ridiculous because it's got way too many values. So let's click on that cell, and then under format, I'm going to come over here where it says number, and I'm going to choose 2 decimals because that'll just have a little bit more meaning to us. So the slope of my data would be 8.47. I'm going to do the same exact thing for y-intercept. It's a formula, so I start with equals, only this time I'm going to type in intercept. And again, you'll see that you're given the format. I need to use the y values, highlight all the y values, put in a comma, and then put in all my x values, and end it with the parentheses. And once again, I'm going to format and go to number with 2 decimals. So for this data, the slope of the best fit line, which is an average between all the points, is 8.47, and the y-intercept is negative 0.62. All right, every lab is pretty much going to be asking you what is the value of the slope, what is the meaning of the slope, and the same thing with the y-intercept. Now, in addition to calculating these 2 values for us, we can also graph the data. Now the way we're going to do that is we need to highlight our data starting with the labels and units. So I've highlighted that, and I'm going to come up here where it says insert, and we're going to insert a chart. All right, so we look at this and we have this chart. Now, since my first row was the title, we're going to make sure that that button is clicked. Use row 1 as headers. And you'll notice that this graph really doesn't have a whole lot of meaning. So we need to go over to where it says charts here, and we're going to pick a scatter. We're going to pick a scatter, and I want you to do the points and not the bubbles. Now when you do this, you look at this and you say, all right, well this is kind of nice. It's a nice line. I can see that from the information. However, it doesn't tell me a whole lot. And if you don't start adding things like labels and units and titles, you will lose the majority of points for your graph. Now the way we do that is we come over here where it says customize, and we're going to start at the very beginning with the title. So now the title of this is going to be velocity versus time, and once I hit enter, you'll notice that I've got the velocity versus time title there. If you want to, you can highlight. I could change how large the font is. I could change the color if I so desired. I can do whatever, do whatever you want with it. Now, again, I'm still missing some information, And as a matter of fact, this little legend doesn't really have a whole lot of meaning. So under legend, I'm going to go ahead and take that off. I don't want a legend for this. All right, now what I do want though is I want labels on my Y and X axis. So over here where it says horizontal, we're going to title that, and we had time was on our X axis. But in addition to writing time, I'm also including the seconds. Now in this case I gave you a point of 0, 0. But I will always want you to have 0. So let's go ahead and type in 0 for the minimum value, and then I really don't care what the maximum value is. All right, so we've got our x-axis is dealt with, but now I need to do my y-axis. So I'm going to come over here where it says left vertical, and let's title that, and that was velocity. But in addition to putting the variable, the name of the variable, I also have to put in the units. I'm always going to want 0, 0 as one of my points. So let's go ahead and insert that. And now you'll look, I've got a really nice graph. Unfortunately, Google took out the regression line or the best fit line. I have a gut feeling it's coming back. So if that becomes an option, if you see regression line or best fit line, go ahead and include that. All right, now, let's go ahead and insert that into our spreadsheet. And this is great, but I really don't want it here. I'm going to want it in your actual lab. So if you click on the graph, you'll see that we get this little button here. And with this button, I want you to copy the chart. And this chart is going to be copied to the web clipboard, which means when we come over here to an actual lab. So now this graph doesn't match this lab. I'm just using this as an example. You're going to have a place, for example, right, where did I put it? Oh, right here. We want a graph. It says make a graph of make a graph. Now, I want you to just put your cursor in here like so, and we want to insert our graph. So do you see this button right here? This is our web clipboard. And so I've done this a couple times practicing. I want to insert my chart. That's called chart 1. And voila, there you go. You have your graph inside your document. You will share this one with me when it's complete. And that's how you do creating graphs and finding slopes and y-intercepts with your Excel. The sooner you guys get good at this, it's going to make your work a lot easier. Good luck!